Hello, and today we're here to talk about creating healthy relationships and how we can go about doing that. So the first thing to understand is we have different levels of connection based on how well we understand ourselves and how well we function as human beings. So there's three different states that we can be in ourselves. There is the adult state. This is the healthiest state where we are responsible for ourselves. We take full responsibility for everything we do, and we assume that everyone else is in a state or position to be able to do the same. Then there is the child state. This is where we refer back to child behaviours. They can often be ones that we learnt during childhood, and we defer responsibility to other people. This tends to be to people that are in a parent state, which I'm about to talk about, because as I said, adult states assume that other people are also in adult and so able to look after themselves. And then the parent state is where someone assumes responsibility or leadership over another. So it might be where you think you're right in a situation and you need to tell someone else what to do. They will assume responsibility over child states. It's very hard for them to assume responsibility over adult states because obviously the adult states have also got all their ducks in a row, if you like. So the healthiest communication form that we can have is adult to adult, where everyone is respectful of each other and everyone assumes that the other can take responsibility for themselves. So you can have a nice healthy bond and you don't feel the need to protect or look after someone else at the expense of yourself. Everyone is able to look after themselves. Then there's the parent to child relationship. So this is where you feel you might need to tell someone else what to do. It is less healthy because even though it might be coming from a good place of trying to look after that person, it doesn't allow that anyone else has ability. Now, parent to child states, when I'm talking about this is with other adults, so not children. Obviously, children do have a need to be looked after and do need to kind of leave their responsibility to adults. But this is other adults who you might want to kind of look after. Then there's child to parent. So again, this is an unhealthy state because you're relying on other people to look after you. You're deferring all the responsibility to someone else. You're saying, no, I can't do this. So this can set up for an uneven balance. As you see before, the adult to adult is a nice balanced relationship, whereas the parent-child, there is an unevenness there. So it's good to understand and to try and be our best adult in any situation so that we can have the best connection with other people. Now, the drama triangle, this is when we're not in the healthiest of relationships. And this kind of is presented, it's an idea by Stephen Cartman, who came up with the idea that there are three different types of people in this. So you've got the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. Now, the victim will avoid responsibility to feel inferior. They want to say, that's everyone else's fault, everything went wrong, woe is me, life is bad, it's not my fault, nobody's helping me. The persecutor persecutes to feel superior. So they might have been a victim at one stage and now they're persecuting other people, you're not good enough, to try and make themselves feel a bit better. And then there's the rescuer. And now the rescuer, that sounds like a nice role to be, but the rescuer is trying to be helpful, to feel superior over others so that they can feel better about themselves. Oh, I'm a good person because I do all of this. Okay, so it's noticing where behaviours are coming from. Obviously, we want to do nice things for other people, but are you doing that to fulfil a need in yourself that isn't quite being met elsewhere? Because it's, as I say, a triangle, so it kind of follows round and you can be in any of these different roles at any point and then switch to another. So with the victim, the way to break free from this is to become the hero, which means you take responsibility for yourself. You start to take ownership of your actions and your decisions, and you don't let the blame fall with anyone else because you know that you're doing all you can to be the best you. And sometimes that won't go right and sometimes it will, but it's taking responsibility for yourself. Then the persecutor, to break free of the drama triangle, you want to become a challenger. So you want to motivate people and inspire people. So instead of persecuting people, you can use that challenging side of yourselves to motivate people instead, and to motivate yourself. So you can go, okay, so you say you want to run a marathon, great. What time are you going to run it in? When are you going to start training? But it can be a more positive side of things rather than, yeah, you're going to run a marathon, you're never going to be able to do that. So it's just a more positive way of looking at it. And then the rescuer, the way to break free of the triangle is to become the coach. So we empower others to take responsibility for themselves. So you can give people tools, you can help them by explaining your own experiences, but you don't try and take all the responsibility away from them and just do it for them. So that's a little bit about the drama triangle. And as you can see, you can fall in amongst any of those. You could be the persecutor because you'd felt like you'd been the victim, and then as a result of that you want to become the rescuer, but then it's a cycle, and it's important that we break free from that. So the hero's journey. Now this is really interesting because this is our journey of self-development and discovery. So you're here because you want to learn, because you want to grow, because you want to be the best version of yourself. So we're starting up here in ordinary life. Then you kind of get the call to action, if you will. This is where you've kind of realised, okay, things aren't going as I want to. I want to get some coaching. You're here to work on your anger management. So you're going, okay, I need some support, I need some help. So you go to your helpers and your mentors, and there will be some problems and pitfalls on the way. You might have come across challenges whilst you're trying to work through your goals. You might notice that sometimes you didn't manage to follow through, but at the same time, you are learning on your journey. So everything is learning. There's no failure, there's just first attempts in learning. Now, whilst you're picking up all this knowledge and learning and tools, you are growing in your powers. And then you can return as the hero to your ordinary life with greater knowledge and more responsibility for yourself and understanding of who you are as a person, and therefore know how best to react and respond in situations. So as I said, you might encounter challenges, but you will grow and learn on the experience. So we're here to become heroes within ourselves. You want to be the best version of you, and we're here to learn tools and techniques. So another way to make sure that you're connecting with people on the best level that you can is to understand different perspectives. Everybody has a side to the story, if you like. So if you find that you're at odds with someone else, or you've got into an argument, there's a bit of agitation or frustration, just try and use this little technique and take a moment to see the situation from all perspectives. So first of all, start with yourself. How do you feel? What happened during this for you? Get that down if you want to write it down, if you want to voice note it, if you just want to think about it, but just really take a moment to sit in that and go, okay, well, this is what this made me feel. This situation caused all these emotions to come up in me, and it's made me angry, or it's made me frustrated, or it's made me feel a bit low. Whatever it is, how do you feel? What was happening from your perspective? Then you need to kind of break state, as we call it, and maybe have a glass of water, walk around the room, do something else just for 30 seconds. You need to kind of, it's like a palate cleanser, if you will. You want to cleanse your palate before you go on to imagining from the other person's perspective. Okay, so really take a moment to sit in them as a character, as a person. You can even use their mannerisms and use some of their body language if that helps you. But think about, how does it feel to be them in that situation? What is motivating them to say or act in the way that they did, to speak in the way that they did? What is their concern in that situation? What's worrying them? So think about everything that's going on for them now. And I know that will be harder because we're so used to being ourselves and thinking from our own perspective. But really, if anything comes in from yourself, just take a moment, breathe, let that go, and then step back into the other person's perspective just to really kind of connect with what they're feeling. Okay, again, we need to break state. So have another sip of water, glass of water, walk around the room, shake yourself out, whatever you want, but just 20 to 30 seconds, something completely different. Read a text message on your phone from someone else, whatever it is. Then now imagine yourself as a fly on the wall from this argument, from this situation, with no bias. There's no judgment on either side. You don't go particularly towards yourself or particularly towards the other person. You're just a complete third party. And how does that feel looking in? Looking and playing that situation over, what do you notice now? What do you notice from this fly on the wall point of view about what you were doing? What do you notice about what the other person was doing in this situation? And what are your feelings on the event as this fly on the wall person, this third person? And really think about that too. And then once you've done that, just realise taking this moment to see things in a different way can give you clarity. So what have you learned from this? How can you understand where the other person is coming from? And how can you now interact with them in a healthier way? What would you change about that scenario? What would you change about the way that you walked into it? Or can you see things from a slightly different perspective now? Can you think, oh, actually, I can see where they're coming from. I might not agree with them, but their motivation wasn't a bad motivation. It was coming from a positive place. So everyone is always driven by a positive motivator. So it's understanding that that's where another person is coming from. Okay, now I know that. How can I react differently? How can I do something different? Because as we say in coaching, you can only work on yourself. You can only change yourself. How can you communicate effectively now you know this? Well, first of all, it's really important that you understand your own needs, values and boundaries. If you need to take a moment to write down what they are, the most important things to you that you're kind of not prepared to compromise on, it's those things that are most important. Understand them and then be able to set healthy boundaries. So you understand your needs, and then when you're talking to someone, listen to understand where they're coming from. So like we just did with that perspectives exercise, you want to think about where the other person is coming from and understand their perspective, rather than I'm just waiting for a gap in the conversation or argument so I can come back with my own point. Because actually you might find that you gain a lot more from listening with a will to understand them. Then you can manage your boundaries in an assertive manner. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be passive aggressive. Just be assertive, be respectful, understanding you have your needs and the other person has their needs. But it's very important for you to assert in a clear manner what you need. And as I said, this is asserting those things that you aren't prepared to compromise over. So there might be some things you're like, okay, I would ideally have the washing up done at the end of a meal, but the other person wants to sit down and have a coffee first. I'll compromise on that, but I won't compromise on the fact that we need to talk about our childcare, whatever it is. So it's making sure you're managing those boundaries in a kind, open, but still assertive manner. And also go into that with a positive intention. It's important that we have intentions for everything we do. So if you're going to have this conversation, you know it might be difficult to assert your boundaries. Just think about what you need, and also think about how you want this to go well, how this conversation can go well because you mean it from a good place, to look after yourself, to do a bit of self-care, and also to create better communication. So go into it with a positive and you're more likely to succeed. Then also in relationships, understand people's love languages. There are 5 different love languages. There's loads of different websites you can look at to understand them better and do a little personality kind of love language test yourself. But there's physical touch, which is kind of being close to someone, maybe holding hands, whatever it is, that connection in a physical manner, a hug. There's acts of service, which might be doing something like the washing up for someone, collecting their laundry, whatever it is, like little things that you do for someone else. Receiving gifts, well, that's having presents, thoughtful little gifts or cards. There's quality time, which is spending quality time together, maybe doing something you both love doing. And then there's words of affirmation, which are basically telling that other person how great they are and reminding them of how wonderful they are and how much you care about them. So your love languages might actually be different to your partner's or to your friends. So sometimes it's actually really important to understand what the other person's love languages are so that you can interact with them in a way that they appreciate the most. And lastly, the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. So make sure that you are taking time for yourself. You obviously have today watching this video, so well done. Pat on the back for you. Do take that celebration for that little win that you've done something for yourself, but also recognise where you can take a bit more time for yourself and recognise your own needs and manage them first. Have a great day and take care.